This is my approach to a 4-count draw. I'm doing this as a high-level video to provide you guys a method to safely practice drawing and reholstering your gun from a traditional appendix position. Before we get started, you should be doing all of these exercises in a sterile environment. That means that your gun is unloaded and you have no live ammunition in the room. That is the minimum, guys. You will see me do all of this work with this device in the gun. I have no mag in, and I have disabled this gun by putting in a barrel block. So even if I grabbed a loaded mag, threw it in there, and sent the sled home, it would not be able to chamber around because, well, it's filled with plastic. Let's dive in. Count 1. On the 1 count, we are accomplishing 2 things. We are getting the garment out of the way, and we are getting a firm grip on the firearm. There's no movement of the gun in the holster. We're just establishing our strong hand grip after we get our clothing out of the way. The best way to approach that is through a process that is repeatable. Reliability in all of this trumps speed every time. You got to be able to do this 100% of the time. So in a reliable garment clear, we have to find a place on our body that there is always going to be a garment covering. For some folks, they prefer to index on the gun itself. So I am touching with my support hand on the back plate of the gun, pinching the shirt between the back plate and my palm. That works. My preference is actually to touch another part of my body for additional feedback. So I will touch my center of my palm to my belly button. I can feel my belly on my hand, and I can feel my hand on my belly. I've never missed slapping myself in the belly. It's always there. For differing holsters and carry positions, sometimes, especially for me in deep carry, the gun is less than a reliable spot. It still works though. What does not work is indexing on the hemline of the shirt. If you do this at speed, eventually you're going to tear a fingernail off on your belt, which is a bummer. But the real reason why you're not going to do that is because the hemline of your shirt is constantly in motion. It's never in the same spot twice. So going for it and getting a hold of that reliably, it's a no-go, guys. We're going to go for that belly index, and with my support hand, first motion, I'm going to slap the belly and close my grip. I'm curling as much fabric into my fist as possible, and just that motion alone is typically enough for me to access the gun, even while my fist is still on top of my belly button. But to ensure that we have cleared even the extra large or poofy shirts that we may be wearing, we're going to raise that fist up to our sternum. And that's where it's going to stay. So first action is palm to belly, curl the fingers, raise that fist to sternum. As that fist is raising, you should be completing a full firing grip on the gun with your dominant hand. So when I say full grip, I mean 3 fingers wrapped and firmly holding the gun, and I mean thumb is either curled, hooking over the rear sight, or is driving through and wrapped as high as possible around the tang or beaver tail. To see that at full speed, that is what we're looking for. When we raise this fist up, we're going just to the base of the sternum, no higher. We're trying to get rid of all of the excess motion here. Less motion means faster presentation. So that is the 1 count. Clear the garment, establish the grip. As soon as we break free of the retention from the holster, we are on our way to the 2 count. I prefer holsters, in appendix carry especially, that have higher retention, because as I'm establishing my grip in the 1, I can lean slightly on the retention to allow me to bury those 3 fingers and get that full grip. If you guys have a really loose holster that will just dump that gun out in your hand, you will find often that as you're trying to establish your 3-finger grip, that the gun is already trying to raise out of the holster. That is not a repeatable process for me in any way that I have attempted it. So what I recommend to you is have enough retention that the gun stays in the holster during the entire 1 count, and that it is a deliberate process to remove the gun, raise the gun out of the holster. So from 1, we are moving to 2. You can see my trigger finger is already staged to fall into a high register position as soon as the gun is removed from the holster enough to show me the ejection port or give me enough slide, for left hand folks, to curl that finger over the top of the slide. We're doing our best to keep that high and curled over. For safety, guys, we're keeping stuff away from the trigger until we're ready to fire. So 1, gun comes out, I'm approaching the 2 position, that finger falls into the ejection port, I have the high register position, gun is still raising up. As soon as it clears the holster, muzzle orients forward towards my target, and my dominant hand meets the same level as my support hand in line with my sternum. Both of my forearms are pressed into my ribs. That is the 2 position. Going from 2 to 3, all we're doing is ditching our garment with the support hand, clearing under the gun, and rolling a firing grip with our support hand into the gun. Notice that during that entire process, my forearms do not leave my ribs. There's an added level of precision and safety by pinning the arms to the ribs during the collection process. Number 1, this allows for me to drive maximum tension, maximum strength and pressure into establishing that grip. It also offers me the most control while I keep these objects into my body. If you guys think about this like a daily chore, next time you open a pickle jar, remember how you're opening it. You're not opening it out here. You're not establishing your grip out here and doing the motions out here. You always bring that jar in for maximum torque against your body. That's what we're doing with our 3 count. 1, 2, 3 against the body, rolling that grip in nice and high on the support hand, and we're closing that grip in firmly. You may see that my muzzle is slightly elevated. For others, you may find that your muzzle is directly in line with the target. That is, either of those positions are normal. It has much more to do with your mechanics and the size of your body and proportions than it does with technique. Anything here to here is fine. Excessively high muzzle where you feel like you're flexing the gun upwards should be avoided. Same for trying to maintain a low muzzle here. We are on our way out to present this gun on a target, so keeping it on line with that target is our goal. At this point right here, while we are pressed in at the 3, everything should be done in all of our grip. So support hand should be firmly wrapped and driven in, and if I have any remnants of this clawing thumb, all of that should be taken care of before my wrists leave my ribs. as I'm on my way to 4, so our completed 3 position is here. As I'm driving out to 4, our full extension firing position, what I'm looking for is to interrupt my vision with the front sight. So I am focused on the target. The gun is going to move in a straight line to interrupt my vision, cutting the target in half. I am not arcing over and pressing out. I am not extending out and raising up. Both of those motions will give you bad feedback in the gun, which will lead to a bobble as you reach full extension. From 3, driving out to 4, we're moving to a point of appropriate extension. We want to build as much structure behind this gun as possible. We're keeping the full flat of our chest, hips, shoulders, knees behind that gun. Blading off is not a good thing. That's going to do wonky things for the recoil. If I blade this way, I'm going to kick the gun that way under recoil, and vice versa. Flat structure into the gun. I'm also keeping both shoulders and elbows square as I extend out. Appropriate level of extension means that I am going to a point where these arms are acting as preloaded springs. There. Going beyond this point is overextension. I'm actually losing control, losing ability to put meaningful pressure behind that gun as I pass that point of maximum extension. Worse than overextension is locking out. Don't do that, guys. Generally, most people start with a very locked out position and work to bring that gun in. For me, it's certainly been the case. I have kept that gun closer and closer to me every year that I have shot, and it works out for me. So, this is my point of maximum extension. Anything beyond that, I'm losing control and I'm lengthening the draw process. Last note, as we go from 3 to 4, we can approach that trigger as soon as we have our sights in our peripheral vision. For me, that means right about here, as soon as my arms break, I can start moving to the trigger. I can prep that trigger and feel a wall on that trigger as soon as I can see some sort of sight alignment. So this is all happening in a split second, but I'm driving through, and as soon as I reach the point of maximum extension, I'm trying to break that shot. I'm not waiting until I get to maximum extension to break that shot. They're happening simultaneously. The gun is still moving forward as I break that shot. From there, I reset the trigger and keep working it as necessary. Now, as you are practicing this, remember there is a positive draw and there is a negative draw. So positive draw gets you all the way out. When we're going back into the holster, we're doing everything in reverse. 4 to 3 to 2, transitioning to 1. As I go to 1 position, I can look into my holster, see that it is clear, and I can rotate hips and guide that gun into the holster while seeing it the whole way into the holster. It's one of the biggest benefits of appendix carry. I believe it does add a layer of safety compared to strong side carry for those who are doing things appropriately. If you're looking the gun into your holster every time, it's much easier to do so when the holster is right in front of you than when it's off to your side. Additionally, I also have both hands available to holster there. So This hand is always clearing the garment and it's staying there so that it doesn't get in the way. On the way back in, I break to my 3, to my 2. I grab my garment and clear it up with the muzzle still oriented on target. Clear that garment, then I can look into the holster. I've verified that the holster is clear. That is when the muzzle can go to the holster. I can kick my hips out, changing the angle of the holster so that the muzzle never actually has to cover my goods. Guide it all the way in and ensure that that is actively, the retention is engaged on that. Always look a gun into a holster, guys, every single time. Always do it, and never holster in a hurry. There's never a reason to holster a gun rapidly. If you are in the middle of a gunfight and you find that you need a gun not in your hands anymore, well, if it's that urgent, it's better to just set the gun on the ground. For instance, you have been in a defensive use of your handgun and cops are arriving. Do you want to take the time to safely holster, or do you just want to put a gun on the ground like you're probably going to be asked to do? So you can rapidly put a gun on the ground in a non-threatening motion. It's not so safe to try and rapidly holster so that you don't become a target. There it is, guys, 4-count draw. Practice it. Remember that practice makes permanent. Perfect practice makes perfect. You can practice this at speed, but do video analysis. So as you're drawing, take a video, look at that video, and make sure that you're checking all the boxes of every step along the way. Yes, you can blend those steps, but be sure that everything is getting accomplished when it needs to. If you're finding that you're still doing grip adjustment after your forearms have left your ribs, I would say that you need to slow it down and fix whatever's going on. The grip should be done as soon as possible. So, high level, there it is, 4-count draw.